So since the last show, it does seem like Laporta has done a 180 on Ronald Koeman, and the club has done a 180 on him. People will keep saying, and I know this in our comments and our mentions, Koeman out is going to be over and over and over again. And we've said our piece, both you and I and other guests as well, last week with the Atleti match, not changing our opinions, obviously, but now it seems we do need to get comfortable with the Dutchman again. So I start with a question from Pancho. Do you think Laporta let Koeman keep his job with the condition that he resigns? That way they don't have to pay a termination fee. And that was a conspiracy theory. You have to give a little bit credit to Talk FCB, the biggest, I think, maybe English-speaking YouTuber there is about Barcelona. So I think he's the one who first threw that out into the ether, and people have really run with it. Do you find much credence in that?
Nah, that doesn't seem very likely to me. I don't think their relationship is that good to begin with for them to come to that kind of an agreement. I think it's much more likely that, they took a look at the calendar and they see Valencia, which is now coached by Bordalas, and plays the exact type of football that we hate to face. They see the Dynamo Kiev game and they see the Clásico, and they think, well, you know what? Those 3 matches are so tough. Why don't we look for a new coach if they found one, and have that coach start after the Clásico when the calendar is a lot smoother and we can get some positivity going, because right now the club is in a very negative space. So if Laporta chooses a new coach and that coach starts with 1 or 2 or God forbid 3 poor results in those very difficult matches, then that coach will already receive a lot of criticism from everybody. Laporta will receive a lot of criticism from everybody. The board will be under even more pressure, especially if the coach is not Xavi.
Yeah.
So I think they're just waiting for the right moment to bring in a new coach.
Right. Instead of the idea that financially they're stuck with him through January or through the summer for some reason. Yeah, the summer seems a long, long, long way away, the way the season is going so far, and the negative cloud that is surrounding. And so the question with Nicolas, and, we didn't do a pod post Atletico Madrid, and it feels like that match was, a year ago already, because it happened on Saturday and we're recording on Tuesday here. And so Nicolas asked, is there any way that Koeman can still get it right? And that question really gave me a lot of pondering, because this, I guess, will be the quote unquote review of Atleti now. That I thought that the way that the team didn't play for the manager against Granada, it didn't feel like they played for him against Benfica. Yet against Bayern and against Atleti, I felt like the team was playing for him. I think overall as a unit, I think as a total unit, I don't think they played that poorly against Atleti. They just are not as good as Atletico Madrid at that juncture. And what was more frustrating to me was that sans the 2 goals, which basically happened the exact same way. They were almost parallel images of each other. The way João Felix found space, because a midfielder being not just Nico, who Koeman threw under the bus, but Nico and Busquets were too far, for one of the rare moments that they were too far apart. And Busquets was not close enough to João Felix. That means Araujo went to press forward, as did Mingueza, he made a mistake. He fell for the shimmy, and Araujo behind him was just left in wide open space. João Felix dribbled into that space, and then Lamar and Suarez were able to find space in behind. Piqué was disastrous. Piqué looked not okay after his injury. Both Benfica obviously comes out of the game, and then against Atleti, he wasn't up to snuff. And so the 2 goals are scored with 4 or 5 players all taking part in it. So yes, they were team goals that were scored against Barcelona. But in the same regard, those are things, especially for Nico Gonzalez. I do have a belief that if you sit down and watch film with him for 2 weeks of his international break, and you get his positioning a little bit better, if Mingueza can figure out his positioning a little bit better, then those 2 goals, I don't think happen. So I actually wasn't as disappointed with Atleti as I was with everybody else. But the question then for you, Levon, with that about can Koeman still get it right, is that are those mistakes, like the ones against Atletico Madrid, are those fixable to get enough results throughout the rest of the season? And I know everything harbors on the healthy play, the injured players getting healthy, but maybe we're putting too many eggs in that basket.
A lot of these things are football basics. So the fact that if Araujo jumps, either the whole team jumps and plays the offside trap, or you need to follow the midfielders, which happened here. Especially Nico Gonzalez on that first goal had to pick up Lemar.
Yeah.
That is not news to Nico Gonzalez. It's not as if Koeman's going to grab some tape or grab the images, show them to Nico Gonzalez, and Nico Gonzalez goes like, "Oh my God, a whole wide world just opened up to me. I did not know I had to follow my guy."
Yeah. So wait. So are you saying it's much more structural? That, I mean, I think the people keep asking is like, is the speed of Busquets, are those problems unsolvable because of the speed of Busquets and the speed of Piqué, that your system is built on players who just physically are not up to what is necessary to defend a team like Atleti, or so many athletic teams like Bayern or anybody in modern football now?
I mean, this whole modern football, it's so much more athletic. This comes back every 10 years or so. Like when Pep Guardiola was a player, like as a player, people were already saying, "Hey, football has moved on. Football is a lot more athletic right now. Players such as Pep Guardiola cannot cut it in the modern game." Then after Rijkaard, we had Barcelona was playing really well, but Chelsea, a super athletic team, was actually better than us over 180 minutes of football in that semi-final. And some people there the doubts come again. Well, can our game survive? The whole question of Xavi and Iniesta being able to play in the same midfield, for example, because they were not athletic enough, which is also like the end of Rijkaard's spell going into Pep's years, right? And now 10 years later, here we are again. As soon as we don't play well because our style is not based on athleticism, there come the same voices saying, well, Barcelona is not athletic enough. So no, I do not think that the main problem is athleticism as far as our style goes. I don't think Busquets' problem is a lack of athleticism, because Busquets he's 32, he's not 42. He is not that less athletic than he was when he was 25. Busquets was always slow. No, he hasn't become much slower because he was never much faster to begin with. Piqué has never been fast in his life. He's always been a slow defender. So yeah, I mean, I think tactically, structurally, the team needs to be more on point. I also think that if we are better on offense, then automatically we become better on defense.
Of course.
So sometimes you look at us and say, well, why do we get picked apart so easily? Well, maybe we get picked apart so easily because we don't create as easily on the other side. So that by itself gives the opponent a lot more options when it is their turn to try to do damage to us.
Yeah, I think simply shots on target put pressure on the opposition. And I mean, even just watching this Barca Femení, that while the score is 0-0, there was just so much pressure being put on the Arsenal back line. Eventually, they were going to make a mistake. And if Barca were on the front foot, with not just with possession, but with actually creating danger, then you're right. Their defense improves as the other team is under the pressure. That Barcelona, I think, just not even systemically, but I think between the years, the Barcelona always feels that pressure because they have that possession, because the stakes seem to be so high in every match. And then Peter does ask on the physical aspect of that. Laporta recently set up a director of high performance to improve Barca's physical preparation. And I think in this case, athleticism and physical preparation are different. So like Aguero had mentioned that Barca's gym wasn't even open when he wanted to train physically. I mean, which is funny with Aguero. But then there is a confusion, I think, between the we'll say lack of athleticism and then, physical preparation. Do you think that and we've gotten rumors about the way that Barca train or lack thereof, or not even the intensity of the training, but do you think there is, this director of high performance, that'll be a change, or what could that possibly entail?
I mean, I do think that players need to be fit. And I do think that, it's better to have players run more and run more towards the end of the game. So when we talk about athleticism or just general fitness, in the second half, there was against Atleti, there was a situation where João Felix and Luis Suarez together picked the whole defense apart because Felix played the ball on the left side of the box to Suarez. He ran onto it. Two defenders followed him. But then Suarez was just allowed to turn and cross the ball, cut it back into Felix's path. And Felix had just walked away from Busquets and Frenkie de Jong, and especially Busquets. He was just jogging at that point. So that is a situation where, yes, you want your players to pick them up. Again, João Felix, he's gritty, but he's not athletic. Luis Suarez, he fights, but he is not athletic.
Yeah. Right. It's at some point it comes down to intensity, because we'll talk about Gavi in a second, but I think Gavi encompasses everything that we're kind of talking about. That Gavi is tiny, he's undersized, yet that fight, that intensity, as I've said, with these young players, I look at it the first time we see them, right? When I saw him preseason, I was like, whoa, maybe Barca got something, right? And then that preseason shine is kind of all over them. But now he's a member of the first team, and now he plays, and now I have to view him as a first teamer. And the fight and the intensity, and it's not just getting caught up in that 19, or that Roy Keane, Roy Keane's like, oh, if a guy's not bleeding, then he's not trying, right? It's not that idea. It's not that adage. I think the bigger thing is that intensity is one thing, because Ricky Puig, we see defensively, tries to show intensity, but if you're not in the right spots, then that intensity is for naught, and you're just kind of running yourself ragged. But Gavi puts himself in the right spots. If you can combine your brain with that fire and that intensity and that willingness to win 50-50 balls, then again, you just help your team, and you're a net positive in that regard.
Right. But I also think that Roy Keane would look at Gavi and smile, because here's a 17-year-old kid who is not afraid to play against Atlético Madrid and actually go in hard and take that yellow card.
Yeah.
And set the tone that way. So I just like that Gavi has a lot of fight in him. So he's tactically very smart. Technically, he is very decent, but he's not decent in the way that, when Ricky Puig first started playing for us, sometimes I remember his first preseason against Tottenham, he would impress everybody. He would play a sombrera over another player, and it was wonderful. Gavi does not seem that kind of midfielder, but there's more fire to Gavi, and there's more tactical awareness to him.
Yeah, I mean, Noah asked, now that Luis Enrique has chosen Gavi for Spain, are we all in agreement that Koeman had made the correct choice there? And I don't want to take anything away from Koeman's choice, but I mean, I've been watching Gavi since he was 14 years old now in the academy. And yeah, it's one thing to be a 14 or 15-year-old and then make the step up to first team football. But last year when he was 16 for the Juvenil Oz, he was so much better than every player around him. Just his understanding of, controlling the game, where even if his team wasn't dominating the game or whatever, you could tell that he was just leagues above understanding how that game was going to go. And even if he didn't have, the physical tools, because even at 16, that one player doesn't create a team, but Gavi was just so far ahead of everybody else around him that it's so unsurprising to me that I don't want to take anything away from Koeman, but I think most managers who took the squad that Koeman had, who weren't able to get Wijnaldum, because Gavi would not be there if not for Wijnaldum. If Jes Moriba had stayed, maybe Gavi isn't there this year as well, or maybe Nico is the one still with Barca being Gavi is there. But I mean, if Gavi had gone on the preseason with almost any manager, I feel like he would have got some time because of just how ready he is and just how ready he's shown that he is. So yeah, Koeman was right. He made the right choice. I think obviously.
Time will tell. So it's been 1 month of football that we've seen Gavi. So let's see how he keeps it up. I think Nico Gonzalez is very interesting because when you watch Nico Gonzalez with Barça B, he's head and shoulders above anybody else on his team. He's
Agreed.
Clearly like the best Barça B player. And I've seen matches in which there's both Nico and Gavi on the pitch. And Nico is the standout player. But so far, it has not translated to the first team yet. Okay, he had a couple of appearances. He struggled the first half hour against Levante. He was not bad, but he was just had some bad moments against Atlético Madrid. I very much believe in Nico Gonzalez, and I think he should continue to be given chances. But that just goes to say you never know what you're going to get when players move from one level to the other. So for Koeman to give Gavi his shot at 17 years of age, I don't know if any other manager would have done this. I still think it is kind of special that we have a manager who, with all his faults, gives Gavi those chances and that responsibility. It's a little bit risky as well because you don't know how it's going to impact on Gavi if all of a sudden he gets into his first dip at such a young age. The typical path for academy players would be to get a couple of appearances in the first team and then go back to the B team and take on more of a leadership role.
Right.
In that B team. That is the more steady path.
Right. But now that he's again been chosen for the Spanish national team, it's being Gavi. It's hard to think that he would go back to the B team for an extended amount of time. And also this season, there's no midfielders coming over the hill or getting healthy, right? It's Aguero, it's Braithwaite, it's Dembele. Well, not even Braithwaite this year, but Dembele. So there is no other midfield, cavalry coming to take Gavi's spot, if you will. So we have a question from Richard, again, back to the manager point here. There's been conflicting reports around Xavi and Ten Hag as a potential new manager. Is there any agreement with either? How long realistically can it hold before leaving Barca back to the drawing board? Richard, I don't think Barca's off the drawing board. I don't know if they've actually, I would say, if I had to guess, I would say it's likely that they have been in contact or they've spoken to Xavi's agent or they've spoken to Ten Hag's agent and gauged or tried to gauge their interest in the position. But I don't think any concrete meeting has happened with anybody. I don't. I think that they just gauged interest, tried to figure out what a timeline would be, had very, rough discussions potentially with agents, but it's not always just, everybody always thinks that it's just Laporta, Koeman, and Xavi, right? Those are or Laporta, Koeman, and Ten Hag are the three players and all that, or the three, not players, but the three figureheads, right? That they're having some conversations or big conversation, whatever. So often these things are happening through agents or even for Xavi, I think he has a whole team. So it's happening with his whole team of people, his assistant, his, whoever, and everyone's trying to kind of garner the information that they need as far as timetables before decisions are made. So I think because Koeman is still around, then I would assume that no agreement got very far at all. And there is no agreement because if there was, I think the international break would have been the time for that to change. But you could be right too about your Real Madrid, your El Clasico, finale, and then maybe something is already done. But I don't know, because if it is Xavi, it might be Xavi, sure, but it's not Erik Ten Hag. I just can't imagine Erik Ten Hag leaving Ajax at mid-season in this way.
No, Ten Hag is not going to leave Ajax in the middle of the season. There have been reports that Xavi is open to coming to the club now. I very much doubt that. Well, who knows? Because all it takes is a Zoom meeting nowadays, because everybody has adjusted to the pandemic. Because
blowing up our spot, Levon. We're not. I don't travel to Barcelona, and you don't travel to New York for every podcast. So blowing up our spot here.
We should actually, once that funding comes through, then.
Yeah.
So I think Xavi is the more likely choice to take over mid-season than Ten Hag. The other possibility could be that they're waiting for Bob Martinez, which I'm not very excited about. Today I also read that Jordi Cruyff is pushing for Oscar Garcia, which, with all due respect, I know that he has been a purist choice for a long time, but
that feels like a placeholder to me. That's how I was thinking about this too. That if there is some other big manager that's eventually brought in, because I think a lot of people, again, it's easy on social media to say, "Oh, well, Xavi will take over the summer," or Xavi won't take over until he knows that he has a project that he can come into and not have that kind of responsibility. The things that I would say there is that if Oscar Garcia comes in and is in over his head, he'll be out in the summertime anyway. And not say not much damage was done, but then Barcelona just burned through another manager. Sure, but they haven't burned through a big name that's going to be difficult to remove again. And in the case of Xavi, that to the point, it's odd that I think Xavi, of all the managers, that if he chooses or wants to come, which I don't know why he wouldn't want to take over the first team job at Barcelona, then Xavi is the one who's going to get the biggest leash. Right? If Erik Ten Hag comes in and doesn't immediately fix this problem by January, obviously it's going to be Ten Hag out, because that's how reactive Barcelona. I mean, Kool-Aid's, and I think Kool-Aid's on the internet even more so than socios. I think socios have much more sense than to say Ten Hag out, within 5 matches or 7 matches like managers get. But I think Xavi is going to get the most wiggle room to make mistakes and learn with his young team than any other manager. So if anything, Xavi is going to be the most. He's going to be the most prepared from a media sense, and sometimes at a club like Barcelona, as Richard Nagel also asked, how much of an impact has the off-field drama had in the team's performances so far? I mean, I think it might have some of a dealing, because the way that Koeman answers questions, the way that PK answers questions, the way that Roberto and De Jong, the way that these players are answering these questions in the media tells you that the conversations that we're having are also happening in the dressing room and on the field. And even that blow up between Busquets and PK is just football. They were just talking about football. They weren't blaming each other. It wasn't personal. It was just two captains talking to each other. You could tell there was just a vacancy in leadership, in cohesion that exists this season on and off the field. And I think that does affect the on-field stuff a bit. And so a player like Xavi who says, hey, if we drop some points, they're not going to come for my head and they're not going to come for yours, because I fully represent what is a transition season.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest case for Xavi right now. Like, the club is in such turmoil. I wish that Xavi had been more humble. I always thought that he lacked humility as a player. In post-match interviews, where he would always complain about the other team being defensive. He would complain about the grass. As a coach, or his trajectory after leaving the club, he could have also showed more humility and said, hey, you know what? I am going to take on Barça B. Right. For one season, or I'm going to try to coach a Liga team instead of just staying in Qatar all this time.